They call it the Cradle of Civilization, a fertile crescent cradled between two ancient rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, where writing was born, and humanity first learned to dream against the stars. For thousands of years, Iraq was a crossroads of poetry, science, and life. But history has a cruel way of turning sanctuaries into battlefields. If you look at Iraq today, you don't just see borders on a map. You see a tapestry woven from decades of heartbreak, resilience, and a quiet, enduring grief that the rest of the world has slowly learned to look away from. But we shouldn't look away, because the story of Iraq is a mirror of what happens when a land built on dreams becomes a theater for endless war. It began for many in the modern era with a sudden roaring shock in the spring of 2003. In a matter of weeks, a decades-old regime vanished, leaving behind a vacuumed silence that didn't stay empty for long. Imagine waking up one day and the rules of gravity, of safety, of law, of tomorrow simply ceased to exist. Overnight, neighbors who had shared tea and bread for generations were pulled into a bitter, sectarian nightmare. Families didn't know if their children would return from school. Streets became lines of division. The tragedy wasn't just measured in the monumental collapse of buildings, but in the microscopic details. The empty chairs at dinner tables, the wedding albums burned in crossfires, the silent tears of mothers burying sons in a land that began to feel like a graveyard. And just when the wounds of a fractured nation were trying to scab over, a darker shadow descended. In 2014, the black banners of ISIS swept across the plains, turning ancient cities into ghost towns. Think of the Yazidis, ancient communities living peacefully in the shadow of Mount Sinjar, forced to flee into the blistering desert heat with nothing on their backs. Think of Mosul, a city of libraries, markets, and laughter, reduced to rubble block by block. Millions became ghosts in their own country, internally displaced persons living in rows of suffocating white tents, staring out across dust storms, wondering if they would ever smell the orchards of their childhood again. Entire generations grew up knowing the sound of a drone or an explosion better than the sound of school bells. And yet, human resilience defies logic. If you walk through the alleys of Baghdad today, past the bullet-scarred walls, you will find something extraordinary. You will find poets sitting in century-old cafes like the Al-Shahbanda Cafe, drinking cardamom tea amid the ghosts of bombings past, refusing to let culture die. You will find university students filling libraries, artists painting murals over concrete blast walls, and families rebuilding their homes with bare hands and defiant hope. The crisis in Iraq is not just a story of geopolitical failures, foreign interventions, or economic devastation. It is a profound human story. It is about a people who have survived the unimaginable, yet still wake up every morning to look toward a brighter horizon. History wrote a tragedy across the plains of Mesopotamia, but the final chapter hasn't been written yet, and it won't be written by the storms that swept through. It will be written by the people who stayed, who remember, and who refuse to let the cradle of civilization be forgotten.
Subscribe.